is my great pleasure to introduce our opening keynote speaker. Cancer took his leg when he was just 6 years old, but with that loss came something unexpected, an early understanding of the power of choice. When everything felt uncertain, when his body was fighting to survive, he learned that you can't always choose your circumstances, but you can choose your response. Andrew chose determination over despair. He chose to keep dreaming even when the odds were stacked against him. Today, he stands before audiences as a Paralympic gold medalist, a world champion, and former world record holder, living proof of what great medical care can ignite. His story isn't just about surviving, it's about soaring. And the champions behind that journey include the healthcare professionals who protect patients long before they ever reach the bedside. So please join me in welcoming proud survivor, Andrew Haley.
Excuse me. Thank you. I'm going to get out of the way first. I'm also an Oilers fan. Tough day. Thank you for that warm welcome and the introduction this morning. I'm happy to be here. Before I begin, I need to go over some personal disclosure slides, so they will be up there, but I'll read them. So my name is Andrew Haley. I have no current or past relationship with commercial entities, and I have received a speaker's fee from the Canadian Society of Healthcare Systems Pharmacy for this learning activity. There we go. This program has received no financial or in-kind support from any commercial or other organization. And here's the fun slide, what you're going to learn today. By the end of this session, participants will be able to describe the emotional, physical, and psychological challenges patients face during illness and hospitalization, explain how disability can be a source of perspective and innovation, appreciate lived experiences and challenge stereotypes, define resilience and explain its importance in professional and personal life, and reflect on the connection between healthcare professionals and elite athletes. And I will also say number 6, a whole lot more. All right. My journey, for the most part, started in a hospital. I was 6 years old. Doctors gave me a 35% chance to beat the cancer that was inside of me that was threatening to take over my body. While my brother and my friends were back home in North Sydney, about 4 hours from here, I'm here in Halifax, fighting for my life. Seemingly overnight, I had surgeries, chemotherapy, which, to be completely honest, was absolutely brutal. Uncertainty, and my family was split up with my dad and my brother back home in North Sydney, and my mom and I here in Halifax, fighting my battle. At 6 years old, I didn't know your name. But if I could say anything about that time, is that my mom and dad trusted you with my life. The truth of the matter is, the people that I never saw were the ones keeping me the safest. The pharmacy team would check and recheck medications, because in pediatrics, and I don't need to tell this from this, but it had to be perfect. It couldn't be almost perfect. It couldn't be just about perfect. It had to be perfect by the time it got to my bedside, and thankfully, it always was. Now, you weren't in the room with me, to the best of my knowledge, during that time, but you were involved in every major decision that helped save my life. I spent a lot of time in the hospital, about 2 years, in fact, almost 2 years. And during that time, I got friendly with the doctors, the nurses, other support staff on my floor. But there was another group that I didn't know existed. I didn't know your names. I didn't know your faces until I got much older as an adult. The work no one sees, the risks you eliminate, and the lives you change, whether you know that patient or not. And then it dawned on me, looking back as an adult, how very fortunate I was to have a group of individuals such as the ones in this room on my side. This isn't just my story. This is a story of every patient who's also felt alone, scared, or unsure. This is a story of families who hold their collective breath before every health update. And this is a story of pharmacy workers, healthcare workers, doing their job to the best of their ability to carry patients through some of, if not the most challenging part of their whole life. Your efforts matter. And I want to take you back to where it began for me to show you how. It was October of 1980. Nice fall day outside. My brother, my twin brother Brett, and I would be in our family home. We would be jumping from chair to chair as we've done so many times before watching television. On this particular evening, I fell down to the floor. My parents heard the scream. They were entertaining friends. They came downstairs. My dad picked me up, put me into the family car, and off to the Northside General Hospital we went. He would later share with me, he said, Andrew, I didn't think it was going to be that bad. But at the Northside General Hospital, they did their tests, and they decided that it was bad enough that they immediately put me in an ambulance, and they drove me to the IWK. At the IWK, the specialists did their tests, and it came back. Osteogenic sarcoma, bone cancer, it is spreading. In order to save my life, I had to amputate my leg above the knee. But like all of us in this room, we have choices. And those choices help reshape, redefine, and refocus what we all think is possible. My mom stepped up during that time, and she made an early choice. She said to the doctors, what are the chances that my boy is going to survive? And despite being given only a 35% chance to beat it, I was able to make it through and go on from there. After that, we continued our battle, we continued everything, and we did the best we could until we got to the point where we thought about having that disease. In the hospital, illness challenges patients on so many different levels. Physically, I had pain everywhere, all the time. I also had phantom pain. Everybody knows what phantom pain is in here, I'm assuming? For sure. It's shooting my leg, it's hard, I'm clenching my fists. It was there. Sometimes I would scratch my leg. I would scratch here, and my brain would tell me that there was something there when there was really not. I had weakness, exhaustion, trouble breathing, trouble sleeping, trouble eating. It was a tough time during those periods. Emotionally, the one word that comes to mind emotionally, unfortunately, is fear. You imagine living in fear at any age that you are? I had fear of bad news. There was a fair share of that. Fear of dying. That was real. Fear of the people that we meet on the floor. Fear of them dying. And them also getting bad news. And a fear at being 6 years old and not being able to tell my caregivers what was going on in my little body because I couldn't articulate to them to help them help me. Psychologically, it was probably the absolute worst. Now, those ones were bad, but this took the cake because people were coming into my room all the time, and I was like, what is going on? I'm 6 years old, almost 7, and I had no idea what they were doing. I was just only hoping that maybe they were there, and of course they were, to help save my life. But the thing that got me overall is that you ask yourself, why me? Why did my brother, my twin brother, not have cancer? Why did I have cancer twice? Why my friends don't have cancer? Why did I have cancer? And because I kept asking myself those questions, I traded being a carefree kid and I got a badge to be a patient in a hospital. And that for me was not, obviously, a very good trade. But anybody who knows me knows I'm about mindset, knows I take the littlest piece of positivity and try to make it my own. So what I end up doing is I say to my mom and dad, next time you go home, please get my pillowcase. Please get my bed sheets. Please get my posters from the wall if they let me put them up. Please get some clothing so I don't have to wear this hospital attire in my room all the time. Let me feel a little bit normal, even though everything around me was anything but normal. And I also said, please get my stuffed animals who are going to support me as a little kid. So, my question, first of a few. How often do you see the full side of the patient experience? Who thinks they see the full side of the patient experience? My guess is, that would have been my guess. Now, some may with post-op recovery and being it, but for the most part, you probably deal with the patient and then they're gone. We don't experience everything one at a time. We experience everything all at once. The diagnosis, the fear, the uncertainty, and the loss of control. The pharmacy team may see one chapter in this story, but you may not see how the story unfolds. That's why I'm here today, to show you somebody that was saved so many years ago and how they did. The battle continued in the hospital. I remember my mom would be sitting in this stiff chair. But you know what? I also remember the chemo battles that I had. I remember getting the drug and being in that room with the lights off because the lights didn't react well, obviously, to the chemo. Was it photodegradation? I don't know the biology and the chemistry of it all. All I know is that I was a little kid at 6 years old, scared out of my mind about what was going on. I took a look at the bag and I thought to myself, that's a dark bag. There must be something wrong. Little did I know that the pharmacy team were doing that to protect the medication so it could protect me. Let's go back. My mom I wasn't the only one that faced fear. My mom had a lot of fear because there was fear of me not waking up. You know, it got so bad that I would go to sleep and you were holding on to anything that wasn't the last time I'd have my last breath. When I was awake, my mom would be talking to me, playing cards, just trying to pass the time. But when you're in the hospital, let's talk about 1981. It was like life stood still. It was like Groundhog Day. Every day it was the same thing over and over and over again. And it got really, really difficult. I remember my dad would be out in the hallway, walking around, and in those lowest moments, the only thing that allowed him sometimes to stand up straight was leaning against the vending machine outside my room. We continued to fight. We continued to go on for everything that was happening. And we finally got a little bit of good news. Let's move forward just a little bit. So it's October of 1980. Here we are now in January of 1982, a full 15 months past initial diagnosis. The doctors come in just after the holidays, and they said, great news. Great news. You have one chemo treatment left, and then you're going to get out of here. This is about January the 8th, somewhere in that time frame. They said, we're going to come in next week. So it just happened to be my birthday on the 16th of January. I was 8 years old. And we expected the doctors to come in to tell us the good news, to tell us the plan, to be able to finally get out of there. I was super excited. The doctors come into the room. They pull my mom and dad aside. I didn't hear the conversation. Said, Bill, Linda, I hate to tell you this. The cancer's back. And it's in Andrew's lung. He's got another 35% chance to beat it. He's going to have to go through chemotherapy again. And that was the way it was. That was kind of a gut punch because I think that had they not said there was one chemo treatment left, maybe we could have taken it, but we were sort of on an emotional high at that particular point in time. My mom and dad, hearing this information, come back over to where I was with tears in their eyes and hope in their hearts. And they said to me, Andrew, we're going to be here a little bit longer, but we're going to be okay. You've got this. You're going to be okay. And at that point in time, I was like, okay. My mom and dad lied to me on my birthday. It was far worse than they let on. But any parent in here knows that it's your job to protect your kids. And they protected me the best they could. And in fact, that particular day, they probably saved my life. Because my friends, outside love, hope is the strongest word in the English dictionary. And they gave me that to be able to continue, to be able to fight the fight. I don't normally cry during these talks. I don't know what's going on. But they continue to fight during that time. And I guess it worked. Because here I am. People would say to me, Andrew, you're so lucky that you overcame cancer twice. And I say to them, I was lucky. Who wouldn't be lucky to overcome something like that? But I feel very lucky that I wasn't my mom or my dad or any of the parents out in this audience today that are dealing with the health struggles of a child. My mom and dad were my heroes then because of the support that I got. So I couldn't imagine having to go through something similar with my kids. As I was walking out of the hospital, my mom and dad, it's the IWK just up the street, they took a look at me, they looked down, they grabbed my hand, and they said this: Andrew, it's not how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you get up that defines the quality of your life. And I never forgot that, no matter what happened in everything that I did. Okay. I know what I just shared was kind of emotional and a lot, so I'm going to try to change the mood, because I promise you from here on out, it's just mostly good stuff. I'm happy about that. In the hospital, when I compare myself to other kids, even my friends back home, I was different. I had one leg, I had scars, and I was bald. And when you're like that, you tend to go to humor as a shield to what is going on. And I remember during that time, people look at me and my leg and everything that was happening. And I'm just going to tell you something. It's not something when I ever practice about putting in my speech, but I'm going to share it with you. So in this particular point in time, as you probably can appreciate, I go to a lot of schools, and I love going to schools in Halifax when I used to live here. I live in Toronto now, and I go to schools and I talk to the kids, because I obviously have one leg. And I say, and I'm going to get into the swimming stuff a little bit later, but when I say to the kids, I got a tattoo, don't get a tattoo because it really hurt. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I told you we'd be turning the corner. So, I'm looking at this mirror, and I'm thinking to myself, why me? You know, that whole, you had something wrong with you. You're like, oh, why me? And I'm looking in the mirror, and I'm thinking to myself, why did I have cancer twice, and my brother didn't have cancer at all? And then it dawned on me that I'm so much better looking than my brother. Hello? So I'm going to show you, I know you may have believed me, but you maybe don't believe me, so I'm going to show you a picture of my brother, okay? Here we go. You ready for this? This is good. His name is Brett. I saw him last night, by the way, but this is Brett. So this is a little bit of then, a little bit of now. There's Brett, kind of cute. Now, the years between then and now, I can say this because I'm his brother, haven't been that kind. Can I say that? Maybe that was supposed to just be my head. But anyways, this is Brett now. Like I said, humor, but this is Brett now. Like I said, humor was in short supply, but we took it when we could get it. And my brother doesn't like this flight. Okay, so living with a disability, I'm back home, I've got this artificial leg, I'm trying to go uphill, downhill, it hurt. Let's make no bones about it, it was hard. I remember going upstairs, downstairs. My mom and dad never coddled me in a way. So if my brother's walking to school, I was walking to school. And that's just the way it was. That's just how we did it. But when you have a disability, things are different. You see obstacles that somebody perhaps with 2 arms and 2 legs, they don't see. One of the biggest obstacles that I face in my life is a recurring obstacle year after year after year. And that is, and I'm sure some people probably face this as well, with 2 legs, is walking on snow and ice. I walk like a penguin. Like, that's literally how I walk. Whereas other people, they're walking right by me, and they're going fast. And that's just the way it was. But I felt during this time, I felt a great sense of loss because of everything that was happening. But before that, when your world changes, innovation isn't optional. It becomes survival. We have to change when you have a disability because the path that you're going to go on before is not the one you're probably going to go on now. So I had loss of strength, loss of certainty, loss of the life I thought I was supposed to live, and a loss of an identity. And there was one major question, and if you're some sort of survivor, I'm glad you're here, congratulations. One of the biggest questions in my life at that time was, what am I supposed to do now? When you're 8 years old, living in a small town, and you had cancer twice, this may surprise, but there's no manual. There's no way how to live your life. You just live your life the best way you could. And I gradually started to change. I accepted my limitations. I approached challenges differently. And with that positive mindset, I tried to continue on. And when I got home, I had a choice to make. My choice was to either feel sorry for myself, or I could try to make something of my life. And I tried to make something of my life. I played road hockey, floor hockey, basketball, baseball, tennis, golf. The list goes on and on. If I was playing a team sport, I was picked last. And I was okay with that. If I was playing an individual sport, I probably wasn't very good. And I was okay with that too. I played Little League Baseball. Anybody ever played Little League Baseball? Not that, like nobody? One person? Couple? Okay, good. Little League anything. I was voted typical little leaguer in my league. Typical little, I couldn't run. I couldn't bat because I didn't have any power in my bottom leg to hit anything. And I couldn't field because by the time the ball came at me, I'm trying to bend over and with my leg, it didn't work. But yet I became the face of the league because they said, this is the athlete everybody aspires to be like. And perhaps that was a precursor to the success that I would end up having in the swimming pool. It was March of 1989. I'm 15 years old. I get a phone call from the coach for athletes with a disability. He says, would you like to join the local swim team, the Cape Breton Dorados? I said to him, you know what, I don't like it when people see me without my artificial leg on. He said, I can't really do anything about that, but why don't we give it a shot and see what happens? I show up at the Kiwanis pool in Sydney with shorts down to my knees area. Not really Speedos. But what's a Speedo? And I dive in the water, and I felt great. It wasn't Andrew swimming or training, it was Andrew getting rid of some of the demons that I had in my life, because for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was September of 1980 before everything blew up for me. And I love swimming, and I love going back and forth. And they said to me, Andrew, if you progress enough, you can go to national championships in Richmond, British Columbia. Shout out to all the people from BC here today. So off to Richmond I went. And you know what? I won 3 bronze medals. I was 3rd best in all of Canada. But I'm going to tell you a secret. Because the doors are shut, and you're in my hometown. And there's only 3 people in the race. Please don't put that on Twitter or X or whatever it's called. I came home. I continued to train in North Sydney, or in Sydney. And they said, next stop, World Championships in Assen, Holland, the following summer, July of 1990. Off to World Championships I went, and I faced, my best placing was 10th in the 400-meter freestyle. And there were more than 10 swimmers in the race. Probably more like 30. So on the plane ride on the way home, this voice came in my head and said, one day, Andrew, you'll be a champion. I'm looking around going, what? Who's talking to me? But I believed it. Because at World Championships, I saw people with no arms, no legs, paraplegics, quadriplegics. blind, dwarfs. I saw it all. And I knew that I belonged in that space. And when I got home for the first time in a long time, it wasn't about a disability. It wasn't about struggle. It was about personal excellence. It was about goal setting. It was about finding myself to maybe one day do better than I ever thought possible. So, those people in my life, sometimes I learned that stereotypes, they don't always have to sound negative, because they didn't believe me. Some people didn't believe that I could do what I wanted to do in the pool. Sometimes stereotypes sound like concern. Sometimes they sound like advice. And sometimes they sound like love. But I knew the stereotypes weren't about me. But when caution, and I had it, when caution replaces belief, it could stop anybody before you truly get going. But I believed it. My coach believed it. And we had set out to make many other people believe it. It wasn't because I couldn't do it. I proved that I could do it. It's because those people with the stereotypes against me at the time, they couldn't envision me doing it. And overall, this is what I learned. Other people's limits don't have to become mine. Other people's limits don't have to become yours. And that's what I continue doing, because swimming not only gave me a sport, it gave me a system that was more structured that I was desperately looking for. So I ask you, when's the last time you kept going on a day you didn't think you could? I'm going to give you 20 seconds to think about when's the last time you kept going on a day you didn't think you could. And think about that, and think about why. Okay. Okay. So now I'm going to back that up with one more question. What is your superpower strength that when you're faced with situations like this, challenges, that you go to try to get you through so you can keep going when you don't think you could? So I'll give you another 20 seconds to think of your superpower strength. Okay. Okay. I'm going to talk about the definition in a second. But resilience for me doesn't mean you're particularly strong or particularly tough. It just means that you get up and keep going, like my mom and dad told me so many years ago. When you have a disability or something holding you back in a certain degree, you're automatically into resilience. As soon as I lost my leg, I was going to face a life of challenges and changes and everything else in between. So my definition of resilience is the ability to move forward, even when forward looks different than before. And you learn a new way, you take the next step, and you don't stop. And I was researching for today, I realized that the pharmacy team, you're also about resilience. Of course, you have to be. So, you adjust when conditions change. You continue when the workload feels impossible, and you rise because patients depend on you and what you're doing. How many people in here have ever said to themselves, I would love to be a high-performance athlete? Sometimes it's unfortunate that we need the skill to go with the mindset. Because a lot of us, we have the mindset. Everybody in this room has the mindset. That's why I put it here. Healthcare, elite athletes, high performance. You've got that mindset. We just may not have that little detail about skill. So why are we the same? Because we both have relentless preparation, because the moments always matter. We both perform under pressure. The margins for error disappear. And we stay composed, which is the mental game, which I think everybody in here has either perfected, most likely given your line of work, or you're on your way to perfecting it if you're still in school. And the efforts and the margins are completely razor thin. See if this makes sense. Athletes, we train for the moment. We train for that 100-meter freestyle, track, a hockey game, a golf match. There's defined shots, and then it's over until the next time. It's over until the next time. In your world, there's no such thing as over. There's no such thing as gaps, because healthcare performs in every moment. That's why I don't feel that it would be a problem being an elite athlete, because you already have the mindset. You just have to cultivate the skill, part of it. And in pharmacy, you don't get medals, do you? But you deserve them. How many people in here have ever said to their kids, or you've heard parents say it to you, or maybe you were in a sport and a coach says it to you, or maybe you're a coach and you said it to your athletes, control the controllables. Have we all heard that definition, control the controllables, which essentially means don't focus on the outcome, focus on the process. The things that are in red will drain you. We try to stay away from those. Things are in green will drive you. We try to embrace those. Preparation, effort, attitude, so on and so forth. I was slow to learn this in my swimming career. I went to a competition about 2 hours from here in Antigonish. At this competition, there was one athlete that I thought I could beat. To set it up, it was an able-bodied competition. I was the only athlete there with a disability. But I thought maybe I can beat Timmy. So Timmy swam before me, and then I knew what he went, and I swam after him, and I went slower than Timmy. At the end of the race, I hop over to my coach. He says, all cheery. How was that, Andrew? And I'm like, I lost. Not paying attention to the disability portion of it, like, I swam well from a disability perspective, and it's going to continue me on to other disabled competitions. No, I was focused on what Timmy went. I went slower, therefore, automatically, I lost. He says, what was your best time going into the race? I said, 1 minute and 20 seconds. If you know swimming, that's slow now, but I went a lot faster in my career. And he goes, what time did you go? I said, 1 minute and 18 seconds. He goes, well, do you know what you did? I snapped back. I said, I lost. I was defiant. He goes, no. You just set a personal world record, otherwise known as the best time. But the way he presented it to me made me feel really good about myself. He said, but it also wasn't the greatest of a race. I said, what do you mean? He said, you were so focused on Timmy, you didn't focus on your stroke, on your start, on your turn. None of that. He said, if you start focusing on what you can control, let's go back to Sydney and keep training it, I'll help you. Not only should you beat Timmy the next time out, my hope is that you'll beat a lot of other people. Again, able-bodied athletes. And sure enough, the next competition I went, I beat Timmy. I beat a lot of other guys in the race. And the look on the parents' face when their son got beat by a guy with one leg was just... So, what is something in pharmacy you can't control? I'm sure you have a list of things that you cannot control. So what I want you to do is I want to take another 20 seconds. I want you to think of one, maybe two, but that's probably pretty easy. But I want you to shift off that, and I want you to think, what are some things maybe that I can do that will mitigate some of the things that I cannot control? All right, I'll give you 20 seconds on that one too. All right, let's keep going. I wasn't born ready. I built ready. And everybody in this room builds their own level of ready when no one else is watching. I enjoy things outer space. A few weeks ago, obviously it was a treat watching Artemis 2 make its all the way to the moon. Amazing feat. But going back to 1962 and a speech by John F. Kennedy at Rice University in front of the American public and saying boldly that they will send a man to the moon by the end of that decade, and history will prove that that happened. And I loved his speech. Because in his speech, he says something to the effect, we choose to go to the moon, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. And I've used this in my career because I will say, I choose to go to World Championships not because it's easy, because it's hard. I choose to go to Paralympics, again, same type of deal in my life. So what I thought I would do is I tried to shift it just a little bit, and I hope I did you proud when I'm doing this, you can tell me later, into your world. We choose to do the hard things, working in complexity, managing risk, making decisions when the margin for error is zero, because patients depend on it. In your line of work, you don't take the easy road for your patients. You take the necessary one. And I learned that sometimes things worth going after are going to be hard. I assume everybody knows what the Paralympics are. And my very first Paralympic Games was, of course, in 1992 in Barcelona. I was going in, obviously, 10th in the race. In morning preliminaries, I was sitting right next to the world record holder. His best time was 4 minutes and 46 seconds. My best time was 4 minutes and 58 seconds. Any swimmers in here? So you know the length of the pool? When he's finished, if he's finished to that wall, I'm probably here. That's how far ahead of me the world record holder is. And I'm 10th in the world. In morning preliminaries, he went 4 minutes and 46 seconds, just over his world record. I went 4 minutes and 46 seconds, destroyed my Canadian record, and finished second going into finals. At finals that night, we get marshaled out in Barcelona at this pool. There's my lane in the middle. And we get behind the block. Everybody is talking about Iceland, Norway, and Germany winning the medals. Okay, so we get behind the blocks. The gun goes, take your mark. It was exactly like that. Go! And then it didn't say go, it's like beep, into the water we went. And you're swimming. So at the 100-meter mark, Iceland, Norway, and Germany, broken record, and I'm fourth. The 200-meter mark, Iceland, Norway, and Germany, I'm fourth. Want to take a guess what happened at the 300-meter mark? Iceland, Norway, and Germany, and I'm fourth. At the 300-meter mark, this voice inside my head said, go now. They'll never expect you. Go now. And the reason this voice says go now and they never expected is because typically that's far too early to give everything you had in a race like this. Because the person who wins the race is the person who suffered the least. Because we're all suffering at that particular point in time. And I was going to go after it. I was going to give it a shot until this devil voice comes inside my head. Don't go now. If you go now, you could die. I swear, that's what he said. No joke. Not actually dying, but fall off, on 4th and maybe 7th or 8th because I just gave everything and I fell short. And we've seen that many times in sports where people just went too early. And then the angel voice comes back and says, Andrew, go now. Allow yourself to be great. And do we all not want that opportunity in our lives that we rise up to our level of preparation and we're able to go after it no matter what? So I did. Norway, Iceland first, gold medal. Norway, bronze medal. Germany, poor Germany. And then me, hold on. I was able to win this bronze medal, but the thing is, it felt like gold to me. And I talk a lot about going after our own gold medal moments. And gold medal moments for me is making sure that you go after your own goal, your best time. What do you want to accomplish? It doesn't necessarily mean winning a gold medal. It doesn't mean even winning a medal. It just means trying your best, no matter what your best is. And that was possible because of the hard work that I knew was coming earlier on in my career. So, a few years after that, we swam the relay. It was in New Zealand. It's 1998. And we were a team. I put team there on purpose. T-E-A-M. I don't know if it would surprise you to know that team is actually together, everyone achieves more. And in that particular time, we had 4 athletes, each swimming 100 meters, each 25% responsible, one, the other, final result. We just so happened to win the gold medal. We broke the world record. But in sport, we call it a relay. In pharmacy, we call it collaboration. Working with other people to make sure that the medicine, by the time it gets to somebody like me, again, is absolutely perfect. Checking and rechecking during that particular time. That's not just research. That's championship research and effort that you're giving. You may never meet the people that you save. You may never hear their story after they leave the hospital. You may never truly appreciate the impact that you've had on those individuals to survive. But sometimes, patients, we grow up. And sometimes we get a second or third chance at life. And sometimes, in those rare times, we get to come back to events like this, especially in my hometown, and say thank you for everything that you've done and everything that you continue to do. I see you. I don't win this without precision. I don't win this without healthcare workers and pharmacy workers doing your best efforts without fanfare or spotlight. This is my gold medal from the Paralympics in 2000. We broke the world record. It is one of my most accomplished possessions, proudest moments, and to go from where I was, so sick, 35% chance to live, to the top of the podium, amazing. And yet, for all this medal, is to me, and what it means, it belongs to a lot more people than just me.
Thank you so much, Andrew.
You get a few minutes for questions. You know the people in this room. Nobody is ever speechless.
I think one person, it's probably like one person starts and then it keeps going from there.
How do you feel today?
For me?
How are you feeling today?
The question was, how am I feeling today? It's fine. I've had this artificial leg now for a long time, and health-wise, things are where they should be. I remember going back to the hospital and getting the checkups, once a year, twice a year, and then I think once you get 5 years out, it was every year, and then 10 years out, and they say like, okay, you're good, see you later. But I recognize that it was a really tough journey, and I think that I've been quoted before saying I was disqualified once in a race, specifically in 1996, the Paralympics. And my quote after it was, my biggest battle was to stay alive when I was a kid. So while I don't like being disqualified in anything, I took it, and I learned, and I kept going. So I don't swim as often as I'd like to. My family kind of gets in the way, unfortunately. But yeah.
I'm curious because a lot of people who participate in sports with disabilities, all sorts of different disabilities. So how do you what do you have to do to learn to be a better swimmer? Because you're not necessarily looking at people with the same disability. So you sort of have to tailor your training.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
So his question was about tailoring your disability when you're training. And I think that it's called the higher functioning athletes. Somebody like me with one leg, or somebody like the arm amputated, we are higher into the spectrum than maybe somebody with no legs or no arms. So it does become a challenge, especially maybe somebody who's blind who's swimming, who may need the whole lane. But we do the best job we can to integrate. I think a lot of the lower classifications, when I say lower, I mean people with more severe disabilities, may not engage as much because it's harder for them to participate. But for me, I swam with able-bodied clubs all my life. I swam with the Dartmouth Crusaders across the water, swam with the Dalhousie Tigers for a few years, and so on and so forth. So for me, it was a little bit easier, but I recognize that for all, it's not the same. But we try our best. Yeah.
First, thank you for your story. I mean, it's very, I like it a lot. The part where you were swimming with non-disabled kid, when you beat these kids, how sweet was that? I'm curious.
So his question was, how sweet was it beating those kids in Antigonish, or whatever, after I lost to Timmy when I went back. And the reality was that I was just still trying to find my footing as an athlete. And yes, I joked that I was happy to beat them, and yes, there's probably a little bit of a devil inside of me who took a little bit of gratitude towards that. But I worked so hard against everybody that I trained with. I remember swimming with the Dartmouth Crusaders, and I would lead the lane very often because I was that kind of athlete who just wanted that responsibility. So if I got to the point in time where I was beating some kids with no disabilities, without any disrespect to them, it just showed me that I was on the right path because I wasn't competing against people with disabilities. So I thought if I could beat somebody with 2 legs, it's going to be a little bit easier to beat somebody with 1. So I took joy in it, but it was more so about the structure of the race and the time. That just doesn't sound as fun giving a speech. I have to talk about how happy I was to see their faces, but I saw the big picture. Thanks for the question. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm just curious how you're still swimming sometimes.
I don't swim as much as I want to. I love the summer. I love the summer. I love swimming outside. Unfortunately, when I was here, there wasn't a lot of pools outside. I mean, the WAG in Halifax, I guess, but that's about it. I really never swam there. But I love just the sunshine and relaxing. And there's an expression that probably resonates with a lot of you. The older I get, the better I was. Me too. Yeah.
So thank you for the talk, truly inspiring in every way. There's probably one job today that's harder than being a hospital pharmacist, and that's being a parent, given everything that's kind of happening.
Yeah.
You've learned a tremendous amount through your whole story. And you mentioned you have a family. Is there a couple of pieces of advice that you give your kids to make them more resilient moving forward?
So you asked me about resilience for my kids moving forward. My daughter's 15 and my son is 9, and I don't push them into, one thing over another. My daughter loves to cook. She's far better than I am, and maybe that's her passion later on. And my son, unfortunately, loves Roblox. And you laugh because you know what I'm talking about, right? So that's the deal you make with COVID a few years ago. But I think that I'm just letting them find their own way. And, it's hard because we live downtown Toronto, so it's a difficult environment. When I was growing up in North Sydney, even though I had to go to Sydney, it's small town, it's easier. It's an easier lifestyle. And I think, let's face it, many years ago, 20, 30 years ago, I think most of us can probably say it was a different time. I saw a kid last night coming into the hotel, probably not even older than my son, probably 7, 8 years old. He was on his scooter on the Bedford Highway. There's the Bedford Highway by the water. And he was like, no parents around. That doesn't happen in my world, right? So we have to hold our kids a little bit tighter in some shape or form. But I just let them do what they need to do. And maybe sometimes bring out the gold medals, but they don't. They don't, again, Dad. So, anyways, yeah. Anybody else? Yeah.
When you were telling the story about when you were between 6 and 8, is that seared into your memory, or is some of this in discussion with what your mother experienced, like collaboratively, the story?
Yeah.
It's amazing the detail that you were recounting there.
Yeah, no, she asked if I remember the details of between 6 and 8. And some of it is, anecdotal from my mom and telling me what's going on, but I do remember quite a bit. I do remember very vividly the chemo. I remember my mom and dad could not always be with me. I remember nurses in there holding my hand because of how scary it was. So you don't lose that. It may have been in the back of my mind, and there's a lot of today's talk that I've never spoken about. It just doesn't normally make it into my normal keynotes, but because of this group, I changed quite a bit. So, and I think that, seeing my dad and those memories, even when you're young, 6, 7, 8, you're still old enough to know. I can't say that I remember everything. I remember waking up in the hospital with a tube. So the lung cancer was here, and there's a tube mark right here on my finger. And I remember I just want to get rid of this darn thing. And I remember those moments. I don't remember every moment, but 1981 was a complete just write-off. But they had a school on my floor. My mom's a teacher, so I never missed a grade, which was good, even given my situation. So, but I think most of what I shared was I recall. I remember my dad. I remember my mom. I remember the stiff chair. I remember all that stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
I think your story is really powerful for us, and always having that patient and family voice is important in all that we do. So if we were to ask you or your mom what could have made the hospital experience better, what do you think you would say?
So her question was, if she would ask me or my mom what could have made the hospital experience better. Let's preface that by saying this is like a long time ago that I was in there. So I'm sure that there's been a lot of advances in things that are happening. And obviously I was quite young, so it's probably better for my mom, but at the same time, you know, I'm going to shout out, you know, I don't want to mention any corporate names, so I'm not going to, but there was different, you know, support that we got from different, you know, groups, let's call it. What I would change, I don't know, like that part I shared about the, you know, being in the hospital for 2 years and getting to know the doctors and nurses, that hits home for me. You know, there's a doctor, and anybody's here from the IWK knows Dr. John Hyman. Like, there's doctors, and Dr. Sinclair, and, you know, if you're at the VG, then it's Dr. Layton. And so there's many different doctors that I had that I remember quite well about the time. So what could change? I don't know, I'm here. So that's, I don't know if I would change anything. Although somebody a little bit more recent probably would change this, that, and the other thing. I mean, the typical is I'll change the food, but I don't remember. Anyways.